Good morning, friends. Welcome back to my garden. If you're new here, my name is Kiera. Feel free to call me Q. And today we are planting out this bed that I have next to me. So yesterday I finished clearing this whole thing. It's a 4 by 16 foot bed. I'll show you what it looks like. It took me actually a couple days to get it all clear, but it's clear now. So now we're gonna actually plant it out. I have a tray full of random seeds here for our fall garden, fall and winter. I have, you can see down here, I have a bunch of starts. My starts started off really fantastic this year and then quickly declined for various reasons. There was one day I forgot to water them while they were inside, and then there was one day where I left them outside for too long while they were hardening off. I just forgot about them. So they're in pretty rough shape, I'm not gonna lie. And then they've been sitting outside for the last couple weeks, so they're not great. Some of them are starting to get a little bit eaten by things. It's definitely kind of disappointing, kind of discouraging, but I'm getting to it today and we'll still get some food off of these. So this is the plan for today. What else do I have out here? I have bone meal to put into the planting holes. It is going to be a bit of improv today as far as how I go about amending these beds. I'm not at all doing it the ideal way, just because one, time, and two, we like to really reset all of our beds in spring. And the fall garden is kind of just a free-for-all of like whatever happens, happens, and it's very hands-off for us once I actually put things in the ground. So I'll definitely go over like what I've learned as far as like best practices on how to turn over beds and things like that. But really, this is just to kind of give you a guide or to show you just how flexible you can be and still get some food. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be optimum in any way as far as production. We can do the right things and get much better results than what we're going to get, but I think we'll still get something. So we're going to go ahead and do it. So this is what we're working with here. We had 2 T-posts. I had cherry tomatoes growing there. We had some bush beans and gigantic tomatillos just taking over pretty much this whole area here. I had a pumpkin and an Armenian cucumber growing on that trellis. We're going to fill that up with beans, or peas I should say. I had a really awesome trellis of beans over there also, Blue Lake pole beans. And we're going to fill that with peas also. And so we are going to have peas on all of these trellises. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 arch trellises between these 3 beds. And so all of those are going to be filled with peas. All of the other ones I already did, so it's just these last 2. And I had a really big zucchini plant over here that got taken out a couple months ago. Another thing that I'm doing this year that is improvised instead of ideal is I have a piece of graph paper here to kind of chart what I'm planting. So normally I tag not everything, but a lot of things so that I kind of know and have a general idea of what's what before it gets bigger. And I'm not completely out of tags. So that is another thing that I'm just going to worry about it in the spring garden, order them for that. But in the meantime, I made this little graph of this 16-foot bed, and I'm just going to write notes on here on where I put stuff so that I can remember what's what later. So yeah, it's all about improvising this year. The easiest place to start is on these trellises. Get rid of all this grass at some point. Because I know I'm going to put peas on these 2 trellises, so let's start there first. I'm going to be planting Oregon Sugar Pod P2. It's just a, quick 60-day variety sugar pea. And one thing I learned about these very recently, like a couple weeks ago, it's kind of embarrassing, is that some of these like sugar peas or snap peas, they are different heights. I thought that I always got the tall variety that goes on big trellises like this. And last year, all of my peas were super short, and I was kind of disappointed by it, and I didn't know what I was doing wrong and all that kind of stuff. And turns out that I actually got plants that were short they were supposed to be short. So now I know to look at the back of the package, and this one says that these grow up to 10 feet. Now I looked at the package, the other ones that I have, and it says that they grow to 2 to 4 feet, which is a huge difference. And so what I did, so that I don't always have to read the back of the package before checking, because I have so many pea seeds now, is I just wrote on the front of this tall, and then on the other ones I wrote on the front of the package short, so at a quick glance I know which one is which. So I'm putting these really tall ones on my big arch trellises in the beds, and then I put my short ones on a cattle panel that we laid sideways that we grew Roma tomatoes on this season. And that panel is about 4 feet tall, and so they're going to grow really well in that space, and I'm not going to be wasting, you know, this thing is probably like 8 feet tall. I'm not wasting that much space on something that's only going to grow to like here, which is what I accidentally did last year. So anyway, lesson learned. Hope that's helpful to someone else, because I didn't know. I thought all peas grew the same if they were vining, which, you know, my reference for that was beans, because some beans are bush variety and some beans are pole variety. And so the bush ones, obviously they grow like really small low to the ground, and then the pole ones are the vining ones. And I thought it was the same for peas, so if it said vining, I thought they all got really tall, which is not the case. So we're growing like way more of these than we need, and I'm fine with that. I'm actually really excited about it. But what we do with these is we'll grow some of them for to eat in the pods, but we also grow them kind of like shelling peas, and we will actually wait for them to get bigger, for the peas to actually develop in the pod, and then eat them that way too. I'm just sprinkling in a little bit of bone meal in here. The package says for 1 tablespoon for each plant in the planting hole, for a plant up to 4 inches, you know, in a 4-inch pot. And so I just put like a tablespoon and a half across this, because this is a lot more plants. Normally I would do blood meal also, but we're actually out of blood meal. In general with garden, I do try to do some of the best practices when I can, but if I run out of time or bandwidth or whatever, you know, it is what it is. I use what we have at home, and I really needed to get this out. And at a certain point, doing it the ideal best way, for me at least, it gets in the way of doing it at all. So that's what this is going to look like this year. So yeah, we'll fertilize these more than likely a couple times, but our fall garden is very much a, you know, put it out there and good luck to you guys. All right, so that's one trellis planted. Let's do the other one. So since we grow a lot of these snap peas for kind of like shelling peas for the peas themselves also, I'm growing so many, one mostly so that we just use the trellises, because we're not taking these trellises down this year because we would put them right back up in the spring. So it's mostly just to kind of use the space and, you know, have more food coming out. But the other reason why I'm planting so many is because we want to have a lot of these come, you know, January, February, when it's time for Chinese New Year. My husband Andrew's Chinese, and so we celebrate Chinese New Year every year, and we do hot pot. We have people over, and it's really fun. And this year it's in February, so I want to make sure that I can get these plants good and started, so that hopefully by the time February rolls around, we have really strong plants. Because last year I planted all this stuff out too late, and it didn't really do anything until like March, which was kind of sad. So that is another hope. And then what we want to do with the peas is hopefully be able to freeze a bunch so that we can have peas throughout more of the year. Sweet, one project done. One way that our fall garden is actually really different than our summer garden is how I actually plant the plants, like how I kind of design everything. So for the spring and summer garden, I really like diversity. I love, taking the extra time to mix things in together. I have certain visions for certain corners and how I want them to look and what colors I want to put together. And a lot of it is planned. So I will spend, all of winter making different layouts and plans for the summer garden. And then, when I go out to plant things, I change my mind on half of it and it's very flowy and I basically ignore all the plans that I made or, a good chunk of them. But mostly I really just love the diversity and the heights and mixing things together and not having too many plants that are the same in one spot and all of that kind of stuff because we're trying to grow a really diverse garden in general. And when it comes to the fall winter garden, I don't put nearly as much thought into it. I haven't made a single plan for how I want this to look. For me, a lot of this is same level basically, and a lot of it is honestly the same color. And so for the winter garden, a lot of what I do is planting things in blocks, and I will separate them by something else that hopefully will kind of like deter pests a little bit, add a little bit of interest or something like that. And then I'll do like a block of something else. Coloreds. Okay. I had to see what this was so I could see how far apart to space it. The other thing about the fall garden is a lot of it is the same plant family. Wait for that to go by because we live in the city. A lot of the stuff is the same plant family, and so we have we'll have two different kinds of cauliflower that we grow, which is very similar to broccoli. It's all kind of the same thing. We'll have a bunch of different like cabbages that we grow. So it's still like a lot of overlap in the same like plant families. And so what I do is I try to kind of like block those with something else, something a little bit different. Yeah, these seedlings. I haven't watered them in the last couple days because it rained a few days ago and then I forgot to water them again. So these are pretty dry going in. I'm definitely gonna have to water all of this. Anyway, and so what I'll do to kind of just like hopefully combat with pests a little bit is I will do, some cauliflower and then I will put in, a line of cilantro, or I'll do one type of cabbage and then I'll do a line of something like chard, just to kind of like help with pest pressure a little bit so that a whole entire crop isn't in one space and just gets completely annihilated by a pest. But honestly, like they find it. It's not that hard for or difficult for them to get to it. But I try to do a little bit of diversity that way. And then another thing that I do is I always leave space for garlic and onions around the perimeters of all of my beds. And so that is one way where I will provide a little bit of diversity that way. But that's kind of all of the plan that I have for a fall garden. It's really just like, okay, I know where the onions and garlic are gonna go, and peas will go on any trellis that I have, and that's kind of it. Oh, and another thing I do is I always put flowers in the corners. Anytime I can have any color in the garden, I definitely want that. And I like doing it in the corners because you can see it from the most places in the garden as you're walking through it. The flowers that I have are kind of limited for fall. There's a lot out there that I just don't know how to grow yet. But for the most part, I get calendula flowers and have a lot of those in the garden. And then I've tried like pansies and stuff before with varying degrees of success. Some years they did really well. Last year I got none. Things like that I'm always playing around with, but it's just not nearly as much like time and energy as I put into the summer and spring garden because one, I'm tired from summer and spring at this point and I kind of want a break. And this is just so that I can continue gardening and enjoying it. But we're just so much more lax over the fall and winter. I think what I'm going to do, since my seedlings are dry and our watering system came on last night, but some of the soil is a little bit dry too. I think what I'm going to do is water this whole bed first and then continue planting things so that the seeds that I put in don't get displaced when I water later. This will make everything messier because it'll be a lot more muddy putting things in, but I think that it's going to be better overall. So I just looked at our automatic drip system, the timer that we have, and it looks like the sprinklers actually didn't go on last night, so it is a really good thing that I'm watering this now. All right, so I just saw how easily that water soaked into the ground. It didn't puddle anywhere. So I'm actually going to change my mind again and water after. This is why I normally don't film me planting things, is because it's just me running around changing my mind all the time. It's bad. But anyway, let's get back to planting. So this is coriander seed, or cilantro, same deal. We grew cilantro in our really small herb bed up at the top of the hill right by our house, and it was just, probably a patch like that big, and from that I got all of these seeds. It's a crazy amount of seeds. I will never have to buy cilantro again. And one of my favorite things, I wait all year for this, is cilantro rice. We love it with Mexican food, even though it's pretty sad that for us cilantro never grows in the same time as like the tomatoes and peppers and stuff like that, because it gets too hot for it and it bolts. So this is a slow bolt cilantro that I originally bought the seeds, and now these are a little more acclimated to our climate, and I'm really excited to plant these. We bought a bunch of cilantro from the farmer's market yesterday, and I love the farmer's market. I love supporting the farmer's market, but something about buying produce that either we are trying to grow or, we're gonna grow, I just didn't get it in on time, is really sad to me. So I'm gonna be planting a bunch of this cilantro today. Like I mentioned, one of the things that I like to do is use it as kind of a just kind of differentiator between other plants that are really susceptible to pests, just to kind of like give off a different smell in the garden, things like that. And so I'm going to do like a couple rows here of just cilantro, and hopefully this will come up. I'm really excited to see what this does. And I'm going to plant these, pretty thickly here. I'm not sparing these seeds at all. One, because there's so many of them, and two, because cilantro grows really well just kind of like all clumped together. So I'm just dropping a bunch of seeds in each one of these divots that I made. And I'm going to do a lot more patches of cilantro across all of our winter garden beds. Oh, lost my pencil. There it is. Next up, broccoli. For carrots, since the seeds are so small and I have so much trouble getting them to germinate, I always plant them right next to the drip line. I do like trying to space carrots at least a little bit in the beginning. I really hate thinning plants. It makes me sad to take out healthy plants. I know for some people it's a more efficient use of space to just kind of like over sow in the beginning, and then you kind of take them as you go, because then it guarantees that you have something in that space, or you have better chances, I should say, of having something growing in that space. But for me, this is the way I like to do it, is try to space it out a little bit. These are not evenly spaced or anything like that, but try to just space them out a little bit in the beginning so there's less thinning later. And if things don't come up, I always just kind of sow it again and fill in the gaps. Okay, we're making pretty good progress here. So I think next, we ended with broccoli. I think what I'll do is I'm going to see if I have some more chard to kind of like divide that up. And then maybe it's time for some cabbage. I have a lot of cabbage starts. I don't know where I'm gonna put them all. Okay. I don't know why I'm doing this from this side. I should do this from the other side. I forgot I had Brussels sprouts. That's awesome. So I'm going to put these down here in between these two T-posts so that I can use them as support because they get kind of tall. I've never had success with Brussels sprouts. I almost got them one year and then it started to get hot and they bolted. So I'm gonna keep trying. It's probably too late again, but I'm gonna keep trying. And then here is some Chinese cabbage or Napa cabbage. We want that definitely for Lunar Chinese New Year. This is just a tester to see if I can grow it in the meantime. So I got that, put that there. And then I don't have any more Swiss chard that is already done, so I'm gonna put something else here. Let's do some purple bok choy. And I have one more hole, so I'll do one regular bok choy. We're rocking and rolling, almost done. I gotta update my chart here. Okay, so we did broccoli, purple, bok choy. So these plants get really big, hopefully. So I'm gonna give them plenty of space and a good amount of the bone meal. Oddly enough, the bone meal is helping me find where I've dug the holes. So it's a nice little bonus. I haven't had very good success with cabbage in the past just because it always gets really eaten by slugs. So we'll see how this goes. So before I get to the Brussels sprouts here between these two T-posts, I think I'm gonna do more cilantro. So let's see, got cabbage right here. I'll do 2 rows. And then I'll go around on that side. Okay, let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't remember exactly how far apart Brussels sprouts need to be, but I feel like they grow more up than anything. So I'm gonna see if I can fit just all 6 right here. I might regret this also because just putting all of them in one spot might be really bad for pest pressure. But this is how I learn. Sometimes it's the hard way. Oh, it's a little tomato. All right, then I'm just gonna fill up this little back section here with bok choy because I have a lot of it. And making sure I leave my garlic and onion barrier. All right, so I had to go inside for about an hour and now I'm back. So let's finish this up now. So for this, I'm definitely just trying to soak everything pretty good so that it doesn't dry out during the day. We've had pretty cool days right now, so it should be pretty good. And then our watering system's coming on tonight, so I'm not worried about doing a really deep watering. Thanks for joining me in my garden today as we got this whole bed planted out. I feel better about the progress of our fall garden now that it is officially started. I'd love to know what you're growing for the fall, if you're growing anything. If you've had your first frost yet. Ours is supposed to be probably in another month or maybe even 6 weeks. So yeah, let me know how your garden's going. I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.